How do you start your day? What's your morning routine? We all have one, even if it involves hitting the snooze button one too many times. Guilty. Mine is a sweep of emails before I'm out of bed and then a quick stretch with the kiddos to get us all perked up and ready to take on the day. We're a high energy bunch. Natalie Dawson wakes up at 5:30 a.m. after a solid night's sleep that began precisely 8 hours before.
I go to bed every night at 9:30, so I wake up at 5:30, and I am totally clear on what needs to happen that day because the night before, I looked at my calendar, I moved meetings. Meanwhile, answering emails, working out, trying to be a great wife. I think that that's what most people's life actually looks like. You wake up every day trying to figure out, how do you get to where you want to go? And am I spending my time in alignment with where I'm trying to go?
But Natalie's life isn't quite like most people's, because most people are not running the business they started, one that generated over $100 million in revenue in its first 36 months of existence. And it all started when part of Steve Jobs' morning routine inspired her to take a life-changing risk.
All of a sudden, I'm like, I'm out. I'm leaving this place. I'm not doing this any longer. And I created this different alternative route for myself.
How Natalie Dawson became an unstoppable entrepreneur with literally $1 billion in business under her management. What Steve Jobs had to do with it. And how she overcomes insecurity because, yes, she's human too. Today on the Gratitudeology Podcast.
Will you walk through the fire? Would you ride through the storm? Will you walk on a wire? Will you save me if I fall? Will you break through the madness? Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you find me again.
When Natalie Dawson started working her way up the business ladder and dating the guy at the top of it, she knew how it looked.
Here I'm this 25-year-old girl. My husband is 25 years older than me. I look the way that I look.
The way that she looks, in case you're not one of her 250,000 Instagram followers, is tall and thin with every strand of long blonde hair perfectly in place. She almost exclusively wears black and white, the occasional pop of gray, and always glam. To see what I mean? Head on over to our Instagram at Gratitudeology. And it probably didn't help that she had been the intern.
So it looks like all of the things,
Yep.
and yet it couldn't be any more different.
Yeah.
I was in a very conservative household until I was 18. My husband's the only person I've slept with.
Yeah.
He's only the third person that I've ever dated. So he and I just have this special thing. We have so much trust, and it's like our little joke that it's everything that people think it's not.
Natalie and Brandon are not only life partners, but also business partners. And though they fell in love at work, that's not where they met.
So I've known Brandon, my husband, since I was 12 years old. He was my neighbor growing up.
Let's go back to that 12-year-old Natalie. She was known as a very good student.
My parents were both medical doctors, so they had very high expectations for grades. I got a straight A academic career because my parents would threaten that they wouldn't feed us if we didn't get straight A's. So it was kind of in jest. My parents are fantastic, but there was a very high performing environment that I grew up in.
After high school, Natalie did what was expected. Go to college. And not just any college. The esteemed London School of Economics.
People were so freaking smart.
But so was Natalie. I mean, wasn't she? She'd always had exceptional grades.
I realized fairly recently that most of my education was actually built on me thinking I needed to get an A, but not really understanding what I was doing. I could figure out how to like work my way into an A.
To everyone else, she was a successful straight A student. But when it came to actually learning, she felt, well, like a failure.
I was so depressed. The weather was depressing. I didn't know anybody. I was really insecure, and people understood things that I didn't actually have this fundamental understanding of.
Natalie was in her bedroom on a Sunday, getting ready to do what she'd done so many Sundays before: study for that A.
But before I started, I watched a TED Talk of Steve Jobs' Stanford graduation speech. And in the speech, he says,
"For the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?"
the single most empowering decision that I've made in my life today was making the decision to drop out of college and rid myself of what my parents thought I was going to be, which they were well-intentioned and again, fantastic people, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't who I wanted to be. I always listen to Kanye West's College Dropout albums, my favorite album of all time. I think that was like some foreshadowing.
But not everyone thought leaving school was Natalie's destiny. In fact, nobody did.
My mom cried. My dad cried. Everybody told me not to do this. There wasn't a single person in my life that supported the decision. My friends, my parents, mentors, colleagues around me, because I also had a job at the time. And none of them, when I was like, guys, guess what? I can finally work more because I just dropped out of college. Not one person said, that's awesome. Most of them actually tried to convince me and like resell me on it. And they kind of conspired together in order to get me to go back. And I was like, I'm not doing it. This is the greatest decision I've ever made.
And that's how Natalie re-entered Brandon's life, now 20 years old, as an adult.
I had been around him for a very long time and had taken an internship at his company 2 years prior to dropping out. And I went back and I started working at that company again because there was a dental opportunity that was like a sister company. And so I came back from London, started working in dental management consulting. And that really,
Exciting.
yeah,
Riveting.
Right, like, woo, working in HR. So yeah, that's where he and I started working together. And he always says that I went to London. This is like kind of awkward and like a little weird to say. And I don't know why I'm telling the story. I cringe when he says it to people in real life, but here we are. He always says, you were a young girl when you went to London and you came back a woman. And like, I kind of want to vomit, but
I also get it. So here's the thing. My husband's 20 years older than me. We're 44 and 64. And we joke about it all the time. Here's the funny thing. We actually grew up in the same town. And people are like, oh, did you know each other? I was like, mm-mm. But like we could have. I mean, we grew up down the road from one another. We just happened to not. We were introduced in New York much later on in life. But the reality is when you're an adult, and you're a fully formed person. As Natalie and Brandon were falling for each other, she was also taking on more responsibilities at the company. And finally, starting to actually learn.
He had lost his executive administrative vice president who was working on all of his leadership programs, working on the facilities and administration, been with him for 8 years. And her husband got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I was reporting to her. So all of a sudden he had nobody to run his leadership program. And at the time, it was just like, oh, I can help coordinate these speakers. Like it wasn't some massive role, but it turned into that because I was there. I could do it. I was interested. I was really interested in leadership. And that started, I remember I picked up my first management consulting book at 12 called The Starbucks Experience, just like this actual very natural fascination in how you build brands and what it means to be a business owner. And so I didn't know anything. And that was evident for many, many years as I got experience. But I was naturally very interested in this topic of leadership and duplication and how you help people get from $1 million in revenue in your business to $5 million of revenue, which was the job for management consulting.
When I was 20, I was on the Hot Mess Express. I was out all hours at nightclubs in New York City. I hadn't gotten sober yet. I mean, I could hardly tie my shoes at 20 years old. And here's Natalie, stepping into bigger and bigger roles. And by the time she's 24, she's running a tech platform. It turns out, though, that we were both up against our own insecurities.
I started dating my husband. All of a sudden, I'm in this position where people just literally kept leaving for random circumstances. It wasn't like he put me in these positions and I wanted to be in these positions. I knew I wasn't ready, but there was nobody else outside of hiring somebody. And so I just was like, okay, I'll do this. And I just kept saying yes. And the saying yes is actually what created so much insecurity in the long run for me, because I knew I was over my skis and people were so judgmental. This tech platform that our dental management consulting business was dependent upon, we found out that the connection that we had invested $1.2 million in ensuring that was going to work to be able to let us scale to all of these different independent dental practitioners. There was a break in this system and this negotiation and contract blew up with our supplier. So the business just didn't make sense. Like there really was no model. And I had to fire 50 people. I had to shut this company down. I had to transition the clients off these services. So everything that I already knew every single person was saying about me at that point was about to be true. And then like it wasn't imposter syndrome at that point. Like I literally was running this thing and it failed. So I suck. And on top of that, I had paralyzing fear around public speaking and communication because I had a really bad experience with giving one public speech that was so awful. It was supposed to be 45 minutes and I gave it in a matter of 4.5 minutes and then proceeded to stand at the front of the room while somebody from the back of the room gave the rest of my presentation for me. It was just mortifying. And so you couple my inability to communicate, my desire to be great, and I know I'm smart with a failing business and terrible results. And it really led to a very deep, dark place for me for 2.5 years where I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I honestly just thought I was going to be a housewife because what do I have to contribute? I don't know what I'm doing. And my husband's successful, but I will never be able to create that. Because that company was failing and I shut it down. My husband sells the company that he's running for $151 million, 77 times earnings. And it's just like so successful and everything's so wonderful over there, which, you know, heightened my insecurity at the time. But as soon as he sold the business and decided to continue on to help hit company milestones and hit the earnout targets for that company, we just started spending more time traveling and doing what most people do when they hit their greatest financial targets and sell their business. And we were depressed and miserable after 2 weeks. We did all of the things that people do when they come into a lot of money. We started buying stupid stuff. We started spending time with people who weren't working and just playing golf every day. And for 2 years, we've never had a worse period in our relationship. We were just miserable because we weren't actually creating something.
Natalie saw 2 ways to get their relationship, their business, and her confidence all back on track.
We were either going to go down the private equity route and find somebody that we could partner with and go through like more traditional management consulting and buying and acquiring customers. Or Natalie's idea was to look at social media experts, leverage their audience, and be able to bring something that they don't currently have, which would be the expertise that we know how to do, into their existing ecosystem because they have, you know, existing leads of just additional revenue that we could bring. And I put a list together of 20 people. Grant Cardone was named 5.
You got to be a beast. You got to be an animal in this process, okay? To go from an idea to get attention for the idea, you're going to get attention. Hey, look at me.
Thought he was outrageous, ridiculous. Was like, this is not the guy we are partnering with. My husband won't even take me seriously if I present this to him. And when I, by the grace of God, got on YouTube the next day to start looking up the rest of the list of people, Grant had retargeted me with Elena's content, you know, like that YouTube algorithm stuff. And I found Elena Cardone.
Don't be greedy by playing too small. The world needs you. The world is ready for you and what you have to offer. And by you withholding yourself from others, it deprives them the benefits that you offer the world.
And for the first time, I felt understood and seen and heard, and went all in on reading their books and watching just about every YouTube video. And if you know anything about Grant Cardone, there's like thousands of them. So I did my research before Brandon decided to buy tickets to their growth conference in 2019, where we showed up. We were in the second row. There were 35,000 people there. And it felt like we were at home. It felt like we were finally with people who, despite them having money, despite them creating whatever they'd created, they were still hungry to make an impact and to help people and to really become whatever the version of themselves is that is reaching their potential. And from that point forward, we said we want to be business partners. We figured out how to make that happen. And it's been 5 years of partnership with them. And the greatest decision, next to, I guess it's number 3, because technically the first greatest decision would have been dropping out of college, then marrying my husband, and then partnering with the Cardones.
Cardone Ventures helps companies increase their business 10x.
10x your business, 10x your money, 10x your friends, 10x your network.
In layman's terms, what we do is we help business owners grow. So we do that through a variety of things. We have events. That's actually where I was just this morning. We have a group of 100 people who are learning how to increase their income through growing their different revenue channels in their business. We also have consulting services where businesses will hire us to do their marketing or their sales or their recruitment or their bookkeeping. And then we also place capital. We invest in small businesses to give them the capital that they need to add different businesses, to grow, so that then we can also participate with them in their growth. So it's just a variety of different ways. But the core purpose of all of those things is for us to help business owners grow and to really impact the small to mid-sized business space in the United States by allowing business owners to believe in themselves. Once they've taken these risks to start their own business, you know exactly what this feels like. It's terrifying. It's scary. There's a lot of bad information. And so we just want to demystify that and give them like really tangible, actionable things that they can do to grow so that then they can make the impact that they're looking to make inside their businesses.
Meanwhile, their own business is growing at warp speed.
We now have 320 people, and 5 years ago we had 0. So one of the coolest parts of this business is in 2021, it was the month before my husband and I got married, we acquired this small healthcare business called Streamline Medical. So we were growing our business, but we have a lot of extensive experience in healthcare. And as we purchased a majority stake in this business and we continued to help it grow and we continued to do what we know how to do with our own business, it has now become almost as large as our business is. And we rebranded it to be called 10x Health. So we have Cardone Ventures, we have 10x Health, and then we have a portfolio of about 13 other companies where we are just actively every single day providing growth strategies and different ways to inject capital, inject ideas, inject strategy to ultimately get these businesses to where their potential is.
And Natalie also makes sure each employee is living up to their potential.
I have a system every other week. There's a structure for how I do one-on-ones with my team members. And it's what did we do from the last meeting to ensure that the person actually followed up, because there's nothing I hate more in a meeting than just having another meeting, but nothing got done from the previous meeting. Then it's metrics. So how is that person being measured in their core role? But then you're going into their development plan. Where are they spending their time and energy learning so that they can get ahead of the problems in our business so that they're the people that we promote? Because you're paying somebody to do their existing role. That's what their salary is. But ideally, you want them to be prepared for where the business is going. So they have to be focused on public speaking skills or reading a book or taking a course, just like business owners have to do. You have to constantly be learning to get to where you want to go. So then there's a focus on that, and then key projects / updates. And then you wrap it up with actually talking about their goals and how they're tracking to their goals to make sure that they're still excited about why they're showing up every day.
And if they don't give the report, if they don't fill out all of the kind of deliverables and metrics from the week before, they don't get to have the one-on-one meeting with you the next week, right?
True.
So there's accountability.
My favorite definition of leadership is making other people's success easy. So if you're really going to be a leader and you're going to make other people's success easy, the only way that new people know that about you is the stories of the people inside your current environment. So who can you point me to that's become more successful through being around you because you were able to shorten that time frame of the learning curves to help them be successful faster? And if you're really focused on that, if you're a leader, it doesn't matter if you own a business or if you're a leader of department or you're just leading yourself, how do you act in a way that if you were to explain to somebody, oh, this is how I did this thing, A, B, C, D, it would make it easier for them to be successful. And that's been one of my hacks just in life, because oftentimes I don't want to do A, B, C, D. I don't want to do it the right way. I want to pick a fight with my husband. Well, if I think about the fact that I want to be a power couple and I want people to take us seriously when we say that we have great dynamics in our family business, then I can't just like pop off at him because I'm frustrated. I should say and actually be able to demonstrate that when there's a frustrating moment, which there are, of course, as you know, this is how we handle these things, because I actually do those things. If you start implementing this before you're a leader, that's actually how you become a leader, because you pay attention to what you did.
Oh.
At the start of this episode, I actually left out a few important pieces of Natalie's daily routine. First, she makes sure to hold herself accountable.
I keep the promises that I make to myself every single day. If I'm going to tell myself I'm going to work out, if I'm going to eat chicken and vegetables, whatever it is that I tell myself I'm going to do those things.
It's how she maintains her confidence.
I don't talk about this part of my story very often. I don't go back to childhood. I don't go back to early on insecurities. And it's just not real to somebody who meets me now or sees me now, how insecure I was just 5 years ago. And I've really created the confidence that I have today by being unwilling to give up on who I want to be. I am really clear and have been for a very long time, and I believe most people are too, on who I'm capable of becoming and what my life could look like and the things that I want. And I built my confidence through really being honest about the things that I don't have and that I want and the person that I want to become. And then recognizing that there's somebody out there who has figured that out. So how do I learn from them or learn around them, like listen to the books or the podcasts or the mentors that they have to get access to the data that would allow me to become great at those things. And then when I become great, ideally one of those things, it took me like one thing first and then a second thing and then a third thing. That is what's created confidence over a fairly short period of time, because I can trust myself to create something that doesn't exist today.
Do you ever just have a collapse day? And is there a version of Natalie in sweatpants and no makeup?
That was yesterday.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
All day.
I'm glad to hear that.
All day yesterday. Now, I still always wake up early in the morning and work out. And I think of those days as like, those are the days that if I don't do anything else, I at least have to do my basics, which is working out, ideally some sort of like walk or some sort of book that I'm reading. Like there has to be some sort of improvement if I'm going to just fully not work on something that's important to me. Because I still have to work on myself. So there's no like literally I'm doing nothing, but yes, sweatpants, look like a total freaking disaster. Absolutely.
The other daily practice involves coffee and, you guessed it, gratitude.
As somebody who is constantly striving to do better and to create more and to impact more people, and how we even started this, does my reality equal my potential? And always recognizing that there's never going to be a day where I'm like, yes, I reached my full potential today. I'm never going to have that day. So how do I not constantly be in a state of beating myself up because I don't feel like I'm enough, that I'm not doing enough, that I'm not good enough? And I naturally practice gratitude because I have this itch and this urge to constantly do more, that it's like the yin and the yang for me. I spend most mornings when I am walking to get my coffee. Coffee's a big thing in my life. It's like has these like little subliminal messages. Like, what am I grateful for? And whether that's me making coffee, whether that's me picking coffee up at Starbucks, I developed this habit by actually writing down what I was grateful for on my Starbucks cup. And that was like something that I knew, okay, every day I'm going to have to get a cup of coffee, whether it's Starbucks or, black cup of coffee. Every day, if I do this, how do I incorporate this moment and take this moment instead of just going into emails and the frustrations of most days? And so that practice 6 or 7 years ago has just stayed with me because I still drink coffee every day, where if it's my walk to the coffee, if it's the actual picking it up from a place, or when somebody might hand it to me at an event, it's just like this moment where I'm like, man, I'm really grateful that I get to be at this event. I'm really grateful that I have a husband who loves me, who supports me. I'm grateful for the person that I've become and that I am as hard on myself as I am, but can also be appreciative of myself because it's the right balance. And when I can strike that right balance, everything changes and I become a much warmer, more lovely person to be around versus that constant just frustration. But I think both serve a good purpose, and being in a constant state of frustration has allowed me to create an impact on lots of people that I wouldn't have been able to if I would have just been like, oh, I'm good, I'm just going to be grateful, which is where I think gratitude can sometimes get a little bit of a bad rap.
Right. So coffee plus gratitude equals happiness, but times ambition. Right?
Love.
That's the formula.
I need to get that printed somewhere.
Done.
That's great.
Gratitudeology can really be that simple. Part of your morning coffee and figuring out how it helps you tap into that best version of yourself. Natalie Dawson, thank you so much. You can follow Natalie on Instagram at Natalie Dawson. That's all for today. Remember, if you like what you heard, if it impacted you in any way, and if you think it's a message other people in your life might like to hear, I'd be so grateful if you'd give me 5 stars, leave a quick little comment. Those things really help. And share this podcast with your friends, either on social media or just word of mouth. I'm on a mission for us all to help each other focus on expanding our attention towards what's good in the world rather than focusing on what's bad, one person at a time. If we all did that, even to our own little sphere of influence, the world has the potential to be a much more radically awesome place. Stick with me, friends. I've got your back. We're in this together, and it's a great day to see the greatness in the day. See you next time. The Gratitudeology podcast is written, executive produced, and hosted by me, Jamie Hess. Sound design and studio production by Gotham Production Studios. Our theme song is Maze by Hills, sung by Nadia Ali. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Gratitudeology.
Set us down where we're safe. I'll be right here waiting till you